I'm going to do a quick video on our bathroom in the MooseVan. I don't have a whole lot of time for editing, so I'm quite literally going to do this in one take, start to finish, and I'm not going to edit it, I hope, at all. I'm just going to post it. So if I forget the words, if I ramble, if I get lost, I apologize in advance because that may happen, but I'm just going to go ahead and get this done. So this is the bathroom. It is a fully functional bathroom with hot and cold running water. It has a separate water system completely from the kitchen. It has a separate water pump, separate accumulator, separate hot water heater. Did I say that? No. Separate everything. So the reason I did that, besides the fact that I do enjoy some redundancy in the event that one pump fails, I have another operational pump, is because I have a recirculating shower in here, and I didn't want to mix the recirculating shower water with anything that goes to the kitchen. So it's literally completely separate. Separate filters, you get the idea. It's separate. So let me start with a couple of the main features of the MooseVan bathroom, and then we'll take it from there and see where we end up. Okay. So first, the toilet is in this compartment here, and I put these double doors on. I wanted to do a single door that just swung open and then would rest against the back doors here. But the problem with that is that the space here is so small that if I had a door that would swing out like this, that meant that if I'm in the bathroom with the door closed, I'm scrunched up in that corner, kind of like this, trying to get the door open, and that didn't work for me. So the double doors make it possible to stand in here comfortably and be able to open this up and pull the toilet out. Another thing with the toilet is that I've got 500-pound slides here. I tried a 260-pound slide, and that just had a little bit too much wiggle and too much dip. So when I sat on the toilet, it would actually drop. And I don't weigh that much. So the 500-pound slides made it much more stable, and I like this better. So I just built this box myself. It's not perfectly square. The corners don't meet up great, but that's fine. We're okay with that. I also don't have a lock on here. So another thing I didn't want to have to do is get in here in the bathroom and bend over and unlock this to get it out, and then, you know, again, get down here and try to manipulate that lock to get it back in. So it's just free sliding. Now I've been on a bunch of bumpy roads, and this hasn't broken through the door and rolled out. And I've sat on it a number of times in this position, and so the thing you have to be careful with is that it doesn't kind of move on you. So as you're getting up and down is I think the most dangerous part of having it move on you and having you lose your balance and fall. So you just have to be mindful of that and be careful it doesn't slip out from under you. I did buy this. This is a foot operated deployment, as well as, let's see if I can make that work. So if this is on the side of the toilet over here, and then you kick it down with your foot, then that will sit against the shower pan here, and then you can, you know, again, reach down with your foot and do that. So I haven't put this on there because I just haven't had the need to do it. I'm going to take it with me on our trip just in case we decide to use it, but for now, I think it's fine. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Another unique feature of the MooseVan is the tambour door. So this is very popular in the UK and throughout Europe. It's not as popular here. I do know that some of the manufacturers, Winnebago and others, will put this in some of their vehicles, but it's not popular for the DIY crowd, primarily because I think you have to import it from Europe, and that's a bit of a challenge, not only time-wise, but also customs and taxes and tariffs and you name it. The company that I got this from made it very easy. They took care of all of that stuff. So if you want to know anything more about them, and if you want to order a door, just hit me up in the comments, and I'll give you information about this. So this sits here when it's not in use, and that gives me the maximum amount of walkway here. What I didn't want to have is one of those roller doors because it took about 5 or 6 inches of the walkway for where, you know, the rolling mechanism and where it's stored. And I don't do narrow walkways, so I needed to go with something that offered me the maximum amount of space to get through. So good things and bad things, it does offer that space. Bad things is it does block access to the toilet in this position. And whether or not I need the toilet, there are some things in here that I do like having the ability to access, such as, you know, the water filters and the other systems that are in here. So in order to get to them, I need to close this door, roll the toilet out, pull this panel off, and then get back in here. Not a big deal. You just have to figure out the workarounds and work with them. Something else you can notice is that I don't have tile on my walls. This is a product called Wet Wall by Wilson Art. It's a solid panel, about 3/8 inch thick. So I have this on all of my bathroom walls. It's completely waterproof, mold and mildew resistant, you know, all those things that I love. So I got these, I fabricated them myself, and I think they turned out really nice. I have a cedar shower mat here. The cedar, when it gets wet, it emits that really strong cedar smell all throughout the van, and that's not something I knew would happen. But I actually enjoy it. It's much better than some of the other smells you might have in the van. So the big mistake I made on this side had to do with the shower curtain and this wall here. So this is also, and you might be able to see a little part of it here, also some of that Wet Wall by Wilson Art, and that comes out to just about here. Well, the problem is that I didn't think far enough ahead in terms of where my shower curtain was going to come down on this side and where it was going to attach to. So this corner right here of the vanity was basically a corner like this, and so there was nothing to really ensure that the shower curtain was on the inside of the shower pan. Water could actually get on this side and then run out, you know, this way. So if I had thought about it, I would have made this wall 2 inches deeper, but I didn't. So what I ended up having to do after multiple iterations of solutioning that turned into just pure garbage, I thought to myself, well, I have some of these additional slats from the tambour door because you order it one size and you cut it down to fit your needs. So I had enough slats to go ahead and cut this out and do a floor to ceiling, you know, extension. So now I'm about 2 inches out from the vanity, and the shower curtain can now go on the inside of this. So we solved that, but, you know, I just make more work for myself sometimes if I don't think things fully through and just get to work and start building. So, you know, sometimes that happens. All right, come on in. So whereas this hatch door was a custom order from Boat Outfitters, this hatch door was just an Amazon purchase. And it's watertight, waterproof, the Wilson Art Wet Wall stuff here. And of course, this is a nice storage area. Underneath here, I have one of those really low profile shower. What do you call that? You know what I mean. Moving on. All right. So that's our storage in there. This sink did come from Morocco, although we didn't go to Morocco and get it. They just shipped it to us. I'm going to mount this somewhere here on the wall. Haven't mounted it yet. We do have hot and running water. We have this mirror, which I'm not a huge fan of just because it's really just a tiny little mirror, so it doesn't fill that space really well. But things I do like about it, has heat built into it. It also has a light, which is dimmable. So if you don't want to turn on the big bright lights early morning or late evening, you can just turn on, this dimmable light here. So here I have our shower wand, and this is of course adjustable up and down for your needs. Oh, and here's our little control panel. Look at those little labels. Is that the cutest thing you've ever seen? Yes, we do have a recirculating shower, and I will demonstrate that in a future video, but that's not for today. Also, this wall is so narrow that the controls I needed to put on here for the water needed to also be narrow. So I did go with the thermostatic water temperature control from Aqua, and this is just pretty much a basic on-off flow control valve. This is my water fill. So you just put the water fill in there. That's also from Aqua. And of course, when I do fill that, it does drip. So what better place to have that than, in the shower. This is a heater vent, and my nephew custom 3D printed that little hood so that the shower doesn't drip into the vent. Isn't that fantastic? All right. I also bought these over the door hooks here and heavily modified them. I needed to drill a 1/4-inch hole in them, and of course I needed to cut them off and then put them in there with 3/8-inch bolts into the extruded aluminum. So now I have 4 hooks for showers, and they are not in the way of the tambour door. That slides by quite nicely. Okay. Right. Let's take a look at it from this side. So I do have this trim piece on the extruded aluminum because I did an extremely horrible job of gluing it. In fact, you can see some of the errors still of the glue and the attempted cover up, but that worked out fine. One of the features of the tambour door is that there was a gap here because of the nature of how I did this. I have a 90-degree angle down here, and just because of the way the door works, there was going to be a gap here. So I solved that by using a 2-inch by 2-inch, I don't know if you can really see that, piece of corner molding trim, and I just used VHB tape to adhere that to the wall. So now, even though a gap still exists, you have that complete privacy, as well as splash control. If any water from the shower gets in this area, it's not going to get past this, and that does take it right down into the shower pan. Okay, I have these cover plates for the shower pan because it's a recirculating shower. I do have a lot of the plumbing that goes underneath here, and so I needed to make it removable, but also because you'll be stepping on it potentially, I couldn't use magnets on that like I use on everything else. So I'll use a magnet on something like this where you can just pull it off and it's magnets, right? So the thing is, when you're stepping on the threshold, those magnets could have gave way. So I just put those 2 screws in there to hold that, and the same on the other side. So let's get this back open. And I put the trim up here covering this, and this was for the shower curtain. Originally was going to go across here, but now that I've got this in place, I'm going to move the hook down to here, so it makes it a little bit easier to have the shower curtain go across here. So that concludes the tour of our mini bathroom. I hope I didn't forget anything. I think I covered pretty much all the things that I had on my mind. I will go into more detail in a future video on how the recirculating shower works. We'll also go into more detail about the plumbing systems for the kitchen and bathroom and all of that. So I have detailed drawings. I have you know, a lot more to say on the topic. So stay tuned for future videos. But for now, this one's a quick one, no editing, one take, and I'm out.